Thank you. We have another presentation from English 281, The Problem of Evil. We're going to have Susanna Berger. Susanna Berger is in her 4th semester at UW-Baraboo, Sauk County. She's getting ready to transfer to UW-Madison. She is passionately interested in exploring the tragically ludicrous and the ludicrously tragic. And Susanna Berger will be presenting today on functioning female psychopaths. Can survival be evil? Come on down.
Okay, hello. So to start off my presentation, I am just going to get the definition of psychopathy out of the way because it is fairly controversial. Even just the term itself, psychopathy versus a sociopath and also antisocial personality disorder. Psychopathy is characterized by a checklist of about 20 that was developed by psychologist Dr. Robert Hare, and it's characterized by callousness, glibness, promiscuity, which that kind of has its own issue, but there's just kind of like antisocial personality disorder is just a facet of psychopathy. It's not the same thing, but sociopath and psychopath do have similar meanings, and I know some in the community do prefer the term sociopath just because it's somewhat has less stigma attached. So, when we talk about psychopaths, we usually think of men, like fictional or not. There's Ted Bundy, Dexter Morgan, just all sorts of these like tortured psychopathic males taking out their violence on society. Supposedly there is a ratio of 20 male psychopaths for every 1 female, and about 1% of the population does qualify as a psychopath based on the checklist developed by Robert Hare. And the thing is, I do take issue with that because I believe that female psychopaths are there's more of them around. They're just subtle and they're less detectable than men because women do not express things the same way men do with like crimes. Men tend to have more violent crimes while women have more things like theft and prostitution. I just think the female psychopaths might be a bit more competent. Okay, so Roy Baumeister wrote Evil Inside Human Cruelty and Violence, and he gives a lot of definitions of evil throughout his book, and they do align with our cultural perception of psychopathy. Evil characters are often marked by egoism. Evil involves the intentional infliction of harm on people. Evil is driven primarily by the wish to inflict harm merely for the pleasure of doing so, which actually is a myth about psychopaths. They do not commit these acts for just fun most of the time. It's more evil as a means to an end. And guilt is a learned acquired reaction, which is important with psychopaths because they are trying to teach psychopaths to have somewhat of a conscience at an early age. But, yeah. How much can you really teach it is the issue. Now, to start off, I'm going to be talking about Rhoda Penmark from the movie and the book, The Bad Seed. The book came out in 1954 and the film in 1956 after being turned into a Broadway play. And we have Patty McCormick as Rhoda Penmark, who is really pretty wonderful. She's just your average 8-year-old. She wants shiny things and she wants penmanship medals, and she is not averse to murdering people to do so. Like a lot of psychopaths, one kind of constant trait is a lack of a sense of self and just a very fluid identity. And for her, she's like definitely a burgeoning psychopath, and a child, which means she has these impulses, but she also has child logic to contend with. And so when she can't manipulate fellow children to get what she wants by playing on the archetype of the precocious, sweet young girl in her party dress, she then beats a boy to death with her shoes to get the penmanship medal, which she had earned, to be fair. And she just doesn't display a level of understanding. She's routinely callous, like when the mother of the boy she murdered comes over like more than once to confront her mom about it. Like, she's over there drunk, and Rhoda's like, well, if she wants a boy so much, why doesn't she just go to the orphanage and get another one? She doesn't, like, why not? Yeah. But there is an issue with calling her a psychopath, in that most people, like, no good psychologist will characterize a young child as a psychopath because of the inherent stigma. It's more often referred to as like a conduct disorder mixed with callousness. And they actually do have a very fun summer camp for children with these traits. And it often leads to the children, then they become really good at manipulating and they talk to each other. And so they'll do things in class, like they'll all decide at a certain time they're going to throw up their desk and start screaming. Which, it could be fun. Okay. Now, this came out in 1954, the book version at least, and it's somewhat ahead of its time in just like the way it approaches nature versus nurture. Dr. Tasker of the book says, refers to a psychopath as a type of criminal born with no capacity for remorse or guilt, no feeling of right or wrong, born with the kind of brain that may have been normal in human 50,000 years ago. Now, this is important because Rhoda, she's not hurting these people just because she thinks it's funny or because, like, she wants to see the drunk lady come to her house more. But she just does it because she can manipulate people with her, like, her kind of sweet little girl act. But when she can't do that, she really runs out of options and doesn't see anything else that she's able to do. So she's not trying to be evil by any means. She's just trying to find her way through the world and get what she wants out of it. Asma defines the concept of the accidental monster, as someone who starts out harmless, but their own nature forces a turn toward malevolence. Think of your Frankenstein or your Golem. Now, this is Juliet of the Marquis de Sade's book L'Histoire de Juliette, or The Prosperities of Vice. This came out about 1797 through 1801, and it is what he was eventually imprisoned for by Napoleon, and that is the lovely Jeffrey Archer portraying him in the movie Quills on the end. And Juliet is... At age 13, she enters a convent with her very virtuous sister, Justine, and is immediately seduced by a nun who tells her that all concepts of God and morality are meaningless and you just have to look out for your own pleasure. And in this world, that is very true. The Marquis de Sade is just like Hobbes, like the philosophy of Hobbes taken to its very most extreme. So in this world, like, there's a system, it's all about power, and he does characterize those who have power as masculine, but not every person that's masculine. Like, there can be women in power, like Juliet, another called Clairville, and also the poisoner Durand, who I shall get to. And Juliet commits acts of sex, which for the time not really wanted, theft, and she is a very accomplished murderess. She seduces her own father, who she thought was dead, but she seduces him and then murders him, and then later tells her sister about it, who is like, "Oh, our father's alive? Oh, no, he's not." And yeah, she also steals a great amount of money from the Pope, and eventually, the only time that she really pauses when confronted with, like, evil acts is when this one man named Fond proposes poisoning the wells in France to kill over half the people and profit on it, and she shudders at that, And that, like, when that happens, he almost immediately tries to set about killing her, causing her to flee and leave her amazing amount of wealth behind. And Juliet is a lot like Rhoda in that she is very, very focused on material gain. It's, even though she does enjoy her acts, it counts more as an act of survival, because if she didn't enjoy these acts and didn't participate in them, she would be sexually assaulted or murdered or just made to live as a slave under the people who do. Her sister Justine stands as a direct counterpoint to her, and in her books, this horrible things just happen to her nonstop. Justine, even when she's presented with the being able to kill one of her captors, refuses to do so because she's so virtuous. But, yeah. So, Angela Carter is one of my favorite writers, and she wrote a book called The Sadian Woman, and I know it's pronounced Desad, but I'm not sure how to do that. But anyway, she has a lot to say about it, and a free woman in an unfree world is a monster. And what she's referring to with this is that Juliet does horrible, horrible things and becomes complicit with the patriarchy in her country because that's the only way to gain any sort of freedom. Even when she is in a brothel at a young age, the master thief Duval tells her, if you trace the right of property back to its source, you arrive at usurpation, which just teaches her that the only way to get anything she wants is to take it. Angela Carr also does point out some of her psychopathic tendencies, like not only has she no inner life, but she would deny the existence of such a thing. She's not motivated by art or beauty. She's just very base things. And Juliet even says, I have no light to guide me but my reason. And, yeah. I did kind of cross-reference this with a real-life sociopath. She calls herself a sociopath because she does prefer that. Emmy Thomas, who is a successful law professor. And she wrote the book under a pseudonym. And she just she displays these tendencies towards promiscuity just as a way of getting what she wants and getting pleasure. She really likes obtaining material things, and she has her own sense of morality, but it's one she imposes upon herself. There's nothing inside telling her what to do. Now, I don't believe these women are evil. You look at psychopaths in culture, and you have, from the movie Halloween, Dr. Sam Loomis saying, I spent 8 years trying to reach him and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized there was nothing behind those eyes but pure evil. And he was talking about a 6-year-old that came into his care. Like that, when it's a little unfair. And one of the workers at the camp that I mentioned previously outlines this. If they can get what they want without being cruel, that's often easier, but at the end of the day, they'll do what works best. They see they're given these tools and they use them.
I am increasingly afraid of our students.